Who survived the week of chaos? In terms of last week's rankings, every championship game was an upset. Number 1 lost, number 2 lost, number 4 lost, number 5 lost. Absolute carnage in conference championship week. Who survived to tell the tale? Is USC's win enough to get them in? Or will the playoffs be without the Big Ten champion? We'll answer all those questions in the next couple of minutes. I'm Lucas Strain, and this is the KXnO College Football Online Dynasty presented by Powerade, the Premier League, the PlayStation League. So without further ado, let's jump in and see our final 12 teams. This is the bracket. You see the seeds listed 1 through 12 ahead of you, with the top 4 seeds getting that first round bye. So we're going to do this in the most theatrical way possible, and I'm being told in my ear that we're going to start with the number 1 overall seed. Last week it was Texas, but they lost in the SEC championship game. So who is it going to be replacing them? It's the team that they lost to, South Carolina and Jim Morris. So Jim Morris gets a little bit of payback, finishes the season 11-1, but there's an asterisk there. His only loss came in a simulated game to Clemson in the last game of the season because neither person was able to play the game. Gets his revenge in the SEC championship game and is rewarded with the number 1 overall seed. So let's slide him in there. Number 2 overall is Oklahoma State. The Cowboys and Levi Halling win the Big 12 championship, a rematch of the game earlier this season between OK State and Kansas State. Oklahoma State wins round 2 just like they won round 1. They win the Big 12 and they're rewarded with the number 2 overall seed and get the first round bye. So there's 2 first round byes remaining. The next 2 highest seeded conference champions will be rewarded this spot. And number 3 is Cody Hawkins in Louisville. So Cody Hawkins avoids what would have been a disaster, a nightmare end of the season. Start 11-0 with a great win over Clemson. And then they lose to an unranked Kentucky team in the computer in the last week of the season. Drop all the way down to the number 10 spot in the rankings last week. An elimination game in the ACC championship, but they pull out on top, win the conference, and are rewarded with the number 3 overall seed and that first round bye. Okay, our final first round bye goes to the next highest seeded conference champion, and that is going to be Miami of Ohio. So the computer gets a first round bye. Miami representing the group of 5, or at least one of the teams representing the group of 5. They get the first round bye and are automatically advancing to the quarterfinals. They'll play the winner of the 5 versus 12 matchup. So Miami of Ohio gets the number 4 seed. Okay, so now we have our final conference champion. The question everybody's asking, is this going to be Boise State, who won the Mountain West Championship, or did USC, the unranked team last week who pulled off the upset against Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship, are they going to slide into that number 12 spot? This is essentially who it's coming down to. And the answer is the Broncos. Boise State, another computer team, makes it in based off of being a conference champion. So USC, in all likelihood, has been eliminated from playoff contention. They win the Big Ten championship, but it is not enough. So the Big Ten champion does not make it into the playoffs. There's going to be 2 teams representing the group of 5. So now let's go to the teams that are getting an at-large bid. So again, we're doing this in the most theatrical way possible. We'll do it like the TV show in real life did earlier today. You go from the number 5 seed down to the number 11. So start with number 5. This one should be pretty simple. And yes, Trent Condon and Clemson, they were number 3 coming into the rankings. They were number 3 in the rankings going into last week. Number 1 and number 2 both lost. So Clemson didn't play in their conference championship game, so it was pretty much assumed that they were going to get the number 5 overall seed. And would you look at this? This is the dream path for Clemson. They get to play the computer in Boise State in the first round, and then if Trent wins, gets to play the computer again with Miami of Ohio. This is absolutely ridiculous formatting in the playoffs. Trent Condon, the number 5 overall seed, gets rewarded for not even playing in his conference championship game, gets the 5 seed and will likely play 2 computer teams for the easiest path to make it to the semifinals. Ridiculous format. It has to change in the future. Nonetheless, Trent Condon makes it in as the number 5 overall seed. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 is going to be CC Splash in Texas. Texas was riding an undefeated season up until this point. They were a perfect 12-0, but then lost in their conference championship game to South Carolina. South Carolina could have been undefeated at that point, but it was a 70-20 matchup, a 50-point loss for Texas. But they still make it into the playoffs. They just slide into the number 6 seed overall. Trent Condon moves ahead of them. There was an idea that maybe Texas could have stayed ahead of Clemson, but nonetheless, Texas gets the 6th seed, and they'll be facing the lowest at-large team into the playoffs in the 11th seed. Let's move on, see who the number 7 overall is, and it's North Carolina and Austin Denny. Austin Denny, North Carolina went a perfect 12-0 in the regular season too, but then lost in the ACC championship game. Had a really nice win at the end of the year at home against NC State to close the season. 12-1. They get the 7th seed. Will be hosting a first round game. All right, the 4th and final team that will be hosting a game in the first round is going to be Bugsy 1822 and Ohio State. So Ohio State was 11-1 in the regular season. Their only loss came in the non-conference very early in the year. They made it to the Big Ten championship game, but lost to unranked USC. So Ohio State wins that game. They're probably the number 1 seed, but instead they lose and slide all the way down to the number 8 spot. But hey, they're still in the playoffs, and I don't think they can be complaining, and they get to host a first-round game. They will be hosting the number 9 seed, which is going to be Chip_2018 LSU. The Tigers, 10-2, didn't make it to their conference championship game. They're a team that was like Indiana in real life, where they're sitting at a comfortable record, and they know that they're going to make it in no matter what. But they're going to be going on the road to the Horseshoe, what's going to be a very interesting matchup. Look at those 2 brands. So Ohio State number 8, LSU number 9. The winner goes on to face the number 1 team in the country in South Carolina. Okay, we are down to 2 spots remaining. The number 10 seed and the number 11 seed. Number 10, John Cruzy. So this was the interesting point. Kansas State finished the regular season 11-1. Their lone loss is to Oklahoma State. They made it to the Big 12 championship game and lost to Oklahoma State again. So their 2 losses are to Oklahoma State. And look who they would play if they win their first round game on the road against North Carolina. They would play Oklahoma State. What would be the 3rd matchup of the season? They say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Maybe we're going to find out. Maybe not, if North Carolina can hold on. Anyway, we are down to our last spot. Remember, one of these teams towards the end is going to get kicked out because Boise State and Miami of Ohio, 2 group of 5 teams that are making into the playoffs. We assumed that Ohio State was going to be taking one of those top seeds, one of those auto bids. But then because they lost the Big Ten championship game, they got moved down and they had to take an at-large. So one of these teams towards the end is going to get kicked out. The team that's not going to be kicked out, Nebraska. So Brownie holds on to the final spot. Picks up the win against Iowa towards the end of the season. They finished the year 10-2. They lost at Ohio State a couple of weeks ago, but then ripped off 4 wins in a row to earn that final spot into the college football playoff. And would you look at that matchup? A couple of teams from the old Big 12. Texas taking on Nebraska. A couple of football programs that want to get back to what they once were. CC Splash and Brownie are going to be facing off in the first round. And don't forget, it's a first-round matchup, so that's going to be taking place at Texas. The winner gets Cody Hawkins in Louisville in the quarterfinals. So this is your bracket. It's been a long season, everybody. Good luck to everybody the rest of the way. I'm Lucas Strain. Thank you for listening to this selection show for the KXnO College Football Online Dynasty presented by Powerade, the Premier League, the PlayStation League. Good luck the rest of the way, everybody, and good night.